people talk about design, what do they say about design, and what do they think, what is their belief and their understanding, we would look through what they say, and with that, I hope we would come to understand design better. In this lecture, we expect to contribute something to the program learning outcome. And for one, we wish to develop critical and analytical approach in handling architectural designs for selected type of buildings and demonstrate self-reflection and conceptualizing for students' design thinking. And we wish to develop the ability to identify problems in the social, economic, and cultural realms of architecture and design disciplines, and apply those theoretical knowledge from different fields of history or humanities and sciences in the design of architecture. And we hope that it will help in producing integrated architectural design solutions and building technologies and services. The course learning outcome that we expect out of this discussion is for students to understand the scope, the meaning, and the importance of the principles, methods, and process in the evolution of design so that they can apply those knowledge in their respective fields and studies. And we also expect to evolve specific architectural design guidelines, policies, and these would be based on the sound theory and methods that we wish to discuss today. What is design? Design is to design a design to produce a design. When we talk about design, what do we know? Everything that we see today in the world we live, in our schools, in our rooms, in the houses we live, pretty much everything is designed. We buy something from Samsung, we buy something from Indian made or foreign made. But if you look at it, everything has been designed. It has a general concept and it has been possible through the action of some designer, where they create a plan or an intention of the purpose and the function and the utility for that design. And the outcome that we see in our houses, the tables that we have, the chairs that we sit in, those are thought about and planned and designed by designers. Of course, when we look at design, it has started from the bullock carts and during the craftsman's period where there was no systematic process. But if you look at it today, we have a lot of products that are produced through design thinking, and it is not the same anymore as it is during the times of bullock carts. What we have today, much and pretty much everything that we see today are designed. So, with that, it's possible to say design is now pretty much in every realm or every discipline that we can see today. It could be the design of the interior of the house that you live in. It could be the design of an interior studio that you use for recording, or it could be the lighting design, or it could be the industrial design, or it could be sound engineering design, or it could be urban design, and it could be software design. Pretty much everything has a systematic method and process. Without those systematic methods and process, production of that particular product is limited and it cannot be mass produced or commercialized. So the importance of methods and process cannot be overstretched. It's important that a design has a method and process so that it can be mass produced and it can be commercialized. And even for designers to develop a design process, it has to have certain basic written information which can be developed later on, now, in the future, or in the very, very long future from now. So from the bullock carts to the cars and to the trains or to the supersonic jet planes, it's a process that has been developed stage by stage. So without methods and process, design cannot develop. Now, To begin with, design is something about initiating change. We see a lot of things around us. In the 1970s, John said, design is about initiating change in man-made things. The things that we see around us today, the way we live and the way we use things, all these are something developed through stages, and it is important that those things evolve. The way we use certain things, the way we design certain things, the way we dress, it develops through a process, and that is initiation of change. And that change is possible only when we intervene and when we initiate little changes to the way we live, to the way we design, to the way we use the methods of design. And that's what John is saying. So design is about change, and change is a difference. What is difference? Difference can be in the way we live, difference can be in the way we eat, difference can be in the way we build, the difference can be in the way we live, difference can be in the way we travel from here to here. For example, I can travel by car alone, or I can combine with some other people and travel in the same car with people. Or it can be I can use a public transport. The way we travel, the way we live, or the way we use things can be changed, and the way we design things can be changed. And change of difference is a process. That process is a difference of change, and change of difference is that process. And change of process in the way we do, in the way we live, and in the way we design, that is evolution. So it's an evolution in the man-made things that we see around us, that we use around us, and that we have around us. And that change of evolution is design. And design should and can change the way we live and help us to live a better life, a more comfortable and a happier life in general. So design is a product of thought and a product of the action of someone. And yes, today we have different disciplines who have design degrees, and yes, they have discipline, but each and every one of us can contribute to design. Each and every one of us is a designer, and design thoughts and actions produced by someone, produced by a designer, can change the thoughts and actions of the users. And each and every one of us can be a designer in the way we live, in the way we travel, in the way we wear clothes, or in the way we eat, and the way we talk to others, and everywhere. It's about whatever we do, everything pretty much is a design. And we would like to look at a little difference between art and design. Art is something that makes you feel wow, it makes you feel happy, it makes you feel sad, or it may even stimulate you, it may make you feel angry, or it may make you excited. For example, movies. You see a very romantic movie and you probably feel sad at the end of the movie. You see an action movie and you probably get excited at the end of the movie. That is art. On the other hand, design is something that has basic function, utility, and it serves a specific purpose. Now, design should afford better understanding and interactivity and create a better relationship, a harmonious understanding and relationship between the user and the product, between people, and between the user and the environment, and between different systems, the tools that we have around us, the cameras or the computers or the table. All these are products and we are the users. The basic idea of design is to produce a better relationship between these, a better understanding or a better connectivity between these different parameters or different factors of design. So design can be beautiful, but it can also be very bad in its function. On the other hand, a design can be not so beautiful, but it can have good utility and good function. For example, the example that I have shown is called an impossible teapot. It is red in color, it looks very beautiful. And you can appreciate it's almost like an art. But if you look at it, the handle is on the same side as the place where you are pouring the tea. So functionally, it is really bad. On the other hand, if you look at the white teapot, it is properly kept in the right place where you can easily pour it into a cup and enjoy a cup of tea or a cup of coffee whenever you like. So its design is the interaction between people and technology, and it should afford better comfort, better usability, and better utility. Design is also about discoverability. Why do we think that, for example, the smartphones are so popular these days? One is because it's so easy to use. It's so popular because it's really easy to use. It's in every part of it. Even the things, the icons, even from the icons, even if you cannot read, you can easily understand what it is supposed to be. For example, restaurants, it may have an icon that clearly signifies that it is something that where you can eat food. Or for example, a toilet, public toilet, the symbols, it's so easily understandable that people want to use it and can easily use it. Those are the signifiers. Discoverability of the things, of the design, makes it popular. So design is about also discoverability and the signifiers that is easily understood by the users. So design makes things easier for the user. Design does not make things more difficult. It should make it more easier and simpler. Now, what is discoverability and what is signifier? If you look at the remote controls that you have in your room, in your TV room, you would notice there are so many buttons to it. And if you compare that with, for example, iPhone, smartphone, you can see how complicated some of these designs are. So in that sense, I am trying to say that the discoverability and the signifier in these gadgets or in these remote controls are something that's difficult to use. And possibly in the near future, we'll have things that has much better signifiers, just a simple forward, backward, or whatever it is, that we have already seen in iPhones, iPad, or iPod, that has much simpler functions. So in that sense, I say the design of that is simpler, the better. The simplified design is a better design. And ergonomics is something that has to do with design. It's important, and it is important especially in user-friendly designs, because it affords functionality as well as discoverability, and it gives comfort and it gives utility, and it is something that we should, as designers, look into this as an important factor in our design works. If you look at the doors, you may notice each and every door may have different designs. For example, a fire door, they may not be a handle like the ones that you usually see in your house doors. That is because it has to accommodate people. A lot of people may rush out through that door, and if they push it, and if it has a simple door handle like normal doors, it would get stuck. It's not going to open, and the possibility of the door opening in that case is very difficult. So design is the conditioning factor for those part of product where it comes in contact with people. Where it comes in contact with people, it should afford the purpose of the design. In this example, the purpose is the door should easily open when people rush out because a fire happens in a room. On the other hand, a simple house door may have just a handle where you may not expect the kind of amount or number of people. In house, you may just have 2, 3, 4, or 5 people living there. So the possibility of a lot of people rushing through that door is not there. And that's why you have different doors for different conditions. And design is about simulating what we want to make or do before we do it. The more you do or the more iterative process you follow, you may come up with something that's really good for your design. And this process is about improvement through the process of simulation. So in essence, simulating what we want to make or do many times before we actually produce the real product or the real house, the real building, that is a way of refining our design, improving our design through stages and stages. Design is a goal-directed problem-solving activity. What is the goal? The goal can be what? The goal can be comfort, the goal can be to create air passage or the wind to flow through your house, or it can be to create an atrium in the room, or it could be about creating some space, something like the courtyards in the traditional houses. So it's a goal-driven process, and in this case it can be direct towards receiving the natural forces of nature. It could be the sun, it could be the wind, or it could be simply two people have the chance to come and talk or interact in the terrace and enjoy the view of the city around you and the scenario around you. So it's a goal-driven problem-solving activity. It's about imaginative jump from present circumstances to a future that is unknown. How can we do that? We can do that by studying what is already existing. For example, we could study climate condition of a region or of a city or of a given climate zone and come out with the condition. Number one, the temperature is hot, the temperature is really high in most part of the year. For example, it may be from April to October, it is hot throughout the year. And you may have a condition that it's warm and humid throughout the year. Or you can see solar radiation is really strong, or the wind is minimal, it's not so high. In that sense, in that case, you can come up with the understanding of these conditions. You can make an imaginative jump through your architecture intervention. For example, the west, the sun is really strong. In that area, possibly you can provide good thermal mass to protect the building from the sun. Or you can also provide a courtyard in the northeast that is shaded by the building itself. Or you may have a water pond, that pond or that area with the pond and with the shaded area, it may produce some microclimate coolness within that area. So you protect the heat with high thermal mass walls in the west, and you create something that's cool in the northeast shaded area. In that sense, you are creating a microclimate of comfort and coolness in that area, which can help in the production of a comfortable indoor environment in this particular climate, hot and humid and very less wind condition. The climate condition can be taken care of through this imaginative jump from understanding the climate to the building architecture. And it's also about performing a very complicated act of faith. What does that mean, faith? We don't know what's going to happen. During the tsunami and earthquake of 2011 in Northeast Japan, nobody knows that kind of earthquake, or nobody knows that it will be followed by a tsunami of about 14 meters in some cases and possibly higher in some cases. That nobody could predict that. So in essence, it's also about a performance of a very complicated act of faith, the belief, or whatever it is. And sometimes it's possible, even the best possible solutions that you provide may still fail. And it's a creative activity. It involves bringing to something new, innovative, that is not in existence. And to do that, you have to brainstorm, or you may have to study the existing conditions to come out with something different or something new. For example, in this house, unlike most houses, the toilets and the bedroom are kept together in the core, and leaving lots and lots of spaces for the living room and the kitchen. The house is essentially combination of living rooms with the kitchen, open space plan that can easily be used for any kind of functionality that we wish. On the other hand, the bed and the toilets and the washrooms are located at the core, at the center. And it's about finding the right physical components of a physical structure. And there can be many components in a design. There can be, for example, a house may have a window, may have a floor, may have the roof, may have the door, may have the insulations, and it can have many parts. And those parts may have different choices possible. And we have to make very judicious and critical choices for selecting different elements in different building components. To do that, it's important to find or to understand the basic idea of what could be good or what can be appropriate for that particular locality or for that particular climate. And out of so many options possible, we could come out with some possible ideas, some possible priorities you have to prioritize. For example, in a cold, cloudy climate, we can decide what is good for the climate. We need the sun, and we need solar direct heat gain to heat the room. And even if you get that heat gain, you need to store it. To store it, you are going to need good heat storage thermal mass. And then to protect that heat storage that you have, you are going to need something, a kind of insulation. And for that, insulation can also be a priority. So out of many possibilities, you prioritize and come up with possible 3 thermal mass for heat storage and glazing, large glazing. Large glazing also cannot be in any part of the building. It has to be in the south or in the southwest, where you can capture direct solar heat gain and then store it in the thermal mass walls, the floors. And then insulation is another important thing that can help in storing whatever you manage to store. So possibly out of 10 to the power 10 possibilities, we can reduce to 3 to the power 3 is 27 plus 27 plus and 27, 8 to 1. Out of that, you have basically limited the non-essential possible choices and came up with just a few possibilities, and you iterate and simulate upon this, and possibly you can come up with a good design solution for this particular condition. So design is about finding the right physical components of a physical structure. The physical structure can be a house, and it can be a building, office building, or it can be a shopping mall. And not only in the designs of architecture, it can also be in the design of your furniture, it can be in the designs of your equipment, and it can be in the designs of cameras, it can be in the designs of iPhones or phones or whatever it is. This iterative process of finding the best solutions can be achieved through judicious or through this intuitive selection of the best possible design solutions and prioritizing on what is important and what is not so important. And design is also a complementary relationship of space, time, and function. And it has to be a complementary relationship between people and the space, building itself. For example, in the summer, it would be really unwise to go and stay in the attic space where the roof is corrugated iron, because in the summer it would absorb heat and the room would be really hot. So in the summer it is wise possibly to use the living room more. So complementary use of spaces can be achieved. And in the winter I may use the attic space more because it has more heat and it absorbs more heat. And through this complementary combination of the user, the space, in time, we can also achieve energy efficiency and a better lifestyle and with comfort. So design methods and process. Brief introduction. What is design method and process? In design methods, initially the design methods followed by the craftsmen or arts. The craftsmen do not really use paper or writing. They just do, for example, the making of a wheel, bullock cart wheel. they just make the bullock cart fit, but it is not based on a drawing. So in that sense, that knowledge is only in the head of the craftsman, or it is just in the head of some people in the village, and there is no transference, or there's no duplication, or there's no control of that process. It is just in the minds of the tradesmen, of the craftsmen. So improvement and new discoveries of design methods and process are really, really slow for the previous old stages of craftsman's era, when there were no systematic design process or methods. So design should be a transparent process, and with development in design process and methods, it becomes transparent and a process that can be replicated by anyone to produce something. For example, a design of an iPhone that happens in the USA can be produced in India, or it can be produced in China, because they have a design method and process that can be replicated in any location, because it's recorded and properly documented. And that is one thing that's important in these design methods and process. Design can be descriptive and it can also be prescriptive. Descriptive design explains what it is and how it works. It can work. On the other hand, design can be prescriptive. It must be that this is how it must be, and it is a specification, prescriptive and specified. So in a sense, it depends on how we want to improve and how we want to take design process better. It can be prescriptive and it can also be descriptive, depending on the choices of the people or the designers. So design methods and process seems like almost the same. It has been used interchangeably. But it is a coin with two sides. It's not exactly the same, because process literally would mean a process, a movement, or from one stage to another. It is a naturally occurring or design sequence, separations or events over time which produces design outcomes. And process contains actions, events, and mechanisms. And it's also about an orderly arrangement of techniques and through different time and stages. Methods, on the other hand, is concerned about how we do that, when we do that, and in what design order that is important. Design process, I would say, is like a journey. We travel from one place to another, but how do we travel? As a method, we may go by cycle, we may travel by truck, we may travel by car, or I may go walking. So it's in this process of journey, there are different methods of doing it and different methods of traveling from one place to another. I think that is a possible analogy that I can say for now. So design classic process essentially encompasses analysis, where you analyze the problem and understand what is the situation of the condition, and you break the problem into pieces, and the next step is synthesizing. What do you synthesize? You put together what you have analyzed before in different way. It can be one different way, it can be two different way, it can be three different way, and many different ways. That different ways, those different syntheses or different ways of putting together that analysis, essentially the ideation, the options that you create. House option 1, house option 2, furniture option 1, chair option 2, or table option 2. So you may have different options in that, and you are putting what the information you have again into different possibilities. And then you evaluate. If it's a team, maybe you discuss over it and select the best one possible, or if it's an individual project, you can see the benefits and the merits and demerits, and finally come out with something that is most appropriate for the design condition in the given context and the given condition and locality that you are dealing with. So design is a mode of thought. It's a mode of thought that you have before actually putting out anything. You think about it, maybe at home, maybe in school, or maybe at work, but it's a thought process. And then that you finally put it down on paper, or maybe in a blackboard or whiteboard, and you express it. It can be a plan, it can be a blueprint, or it can even be just a sketch. Nevertheless, and it's an expression of the thoughts that you have. And finally, it's a mode of production. It's a mode of producing those expressions into a product. It could be the house, it could be a furniture, or it could be anything. It could even be this, or it could be even be a camera. So it's a process of thought which translates into expression, and that finally becomes a product. In academics, that product could be your submission on sheets and papers. And in real life projects, it could be the product, the house or the furniture. That is design. It's about thought expression and production. Design right. How can we design right? What is design right? Everything is design, but how do you say, or how do you create, how do you come about producing the right design? To do that, I feel it's important to find the right problem and then solve the right solution. So designing right essentially is about designing the right thing and then designing things right, which is equal to finding the right problem and then finally solving or finding the right solution of that right problem. And to do that, I would like to discuss an example of double diamond process that essentially consists of discovery is nothing but research in which it diverges. You discover many possibilities. And the next stage is define, where you converge, you define better. And then the next stage again is based on those things that you define, you diverge again and create many ideas or many ideas on stage. You may create many possible options. And finally, it's the iterative testing. You test it, and if it's good, you take it. And that final test and proof product can be delivered to the clients. So this is essentially what happens during these stages. The first stage is discovery, and then defining, and then develop, and then delivery. 4 stages, essentially divided into 2. Finding the right problem is the A section, and then designing things right, designing the right solution is the last. So for 1A, let's look at discover. In discovery or research, you may have, in the beginning, you would study the brief and break apart the brief, study it in detail and understand what the brief is all about. So this is essentially a diverging condition, a diverging situation. In that you may have primary researches and you may also have secondary research. At the same time, during these divergent point, it's also important to create a convergent cluster topics. You may bring out certain topics, cluster topics. For example, in your primary or secondary research, you may discover something about climate. One can be climate, another can be the social, another can be the economic, another can be the demography, another can be the morphology and geographical conditions, and many other things. You can cluster certain topics. And in the next stage of the process is define and synthesis. In this stage, the findings that you have in the initial stage, you can define them. You can find insights, themes, and you can identify the opportunity areas and how you may come. This is essentially a conversion point where you may drop or some put off certain ideas that are not so relevant anymore. And you need to define your project, you need to define your themes, you need to define and come out with insights that can be tangibly developed into possible ideas, possible products, and possible building designs in the next stage. And how you are going to accomplish that is something that you have to take care of at this stage. And the next stage of the design process is based on the ideas or based on the cluster topics or that you have already defined. This is the stage where you diverge, you ideate, you create a lot of ideas, and you develop the ideas that you previously have into possible final product. And you, for example, in the design of a house, you may have option 1, option 2, option 3. And the same could be for your furniture design. It could be option 1, option 2, option 3. You may have different options. And within that time, we're creating these ideas. It's also important to converse in the sense that you evaluate certain ideas that you have in parallel. And in the next stage, you essentially test whatever you build. You make the model and then you simulate it and you iterate. And you keep on. If you have about 4, 5, 6 possible options in the ideation stage, in the stage that you develop, you can test each and every idea, and finally you'll find something that fits that particular solution. So at the end, the ending part is essentially minimal, and it should be a specific solution to the problem that you are dealing with. So in a sense, it is like this creativity curve. It starts with 0. However, in the beginning it diverges, and then when you converge again, it is a bit low. Then when you ideate again, it started diverging again, and finally at the end you are coming up with a specific solution. It is possibly a minimal solution, but that is fit and that is possibly the best for your solution. So it's a creativity, and that creativity often connotes, or that often means, iterative stage-wise approach to solving the problem, the correct problem, to find the best fit, to find the right answer. And finally, this is an addition. Design is a process. How can design be a process? Design is a product. How can it be a process? Most of the things that we see around are something, a product that we use for that definite purpose. How can it be a process? How can design be a process? Design needs to be a process. So in that sense, it possibly is talking about the experience, or it could be about the act of doing something while using that product. So it's not simply a product in itself. So the process of it, the process of that using or experiencing that product could be one idea to this thought. Essentially, a process consists of a series of actions or steps that is taken to accomplish or to come to a certain final stage. For stage 2, it may be step 1, step 2, step 3, and finally you come to 4. So it's a stage, different stages. And design as a process is a shift from the idea or progress towards a goal to the idea of process. For example, it could be the design of something. It's a product. It could be mean shift in design paradigm from just planning a product, an artwork, an artifact, or a house, to designing something as an experience, as a process, as the process of sitting in the chair, as a process of sleeping on the bed, or as a process of appreciating an art. So it is a whole holistic look at the product, from its use, from its beauty, or from its aesthetic to functionality, and then from in terms of the experience of the product itself. So objects needs to be looked at more of as a process rather than as an object or just an artifact. It involves the experience of it. So we have changed from planning product to planning process, and we have yet to admit that the different designing could become not just goal seeking but a shared initiative, and in itself it could be a process. For example, this is a water lily by Monet, and this is an object. However, if I look at this is an art, people are appreciating it. It's a process of appreciation, it's a process of people experiencing the space and as well as the art. It's a process of, it's like the act of acting is a process. The act of painting is a process. The act of looking at it and appreciating it in that museum, in that particular museum, is a process. So in design, most of us, or I think, we have just designed products and we have not designed the process of the whole thing. And in that sense, maybe we need to accomplish more in design. From designing just a product or artifact, we have to move on to designing a process, or designing the process of the product and the whole experience. So art is a process of appreciating the art object. And architecture can also be a process of living. It can be the act of interacting with the surrounding, it can be with the act of interacting with the building spaces, and it can be interacting with the natural environment, the sun, the wind, the sky. So it should be something experiential, and it should produce, it should be not just a product, it should be a wholesome, holistic approach to the design of the building that allows the user to experience different phenomenology that can be experienced through design. And that is something that we need to consider effectively. And it becomes an appreciation process of interacting with the natural elements of the air, the light, and appreciating space and appreciating the nature that happens, that is created by the artifact or the architectural, the concrete structure in this case. So it can be a house, it can be designed as a process of living, or the act of living in it is the art of living. These clients wanted a nomadic tribe of living, have something like a tree where people live and freely have a different kind of experience as if they are in a tree house. So this house design essentially tries to account for the wishes of the clients to live in a tree-like house in this design, and it is defined and it fit how the people wishes to live. And it's also a unity of separation and coherence. This is called NA house, and it has individual rooms, and at the same time it is like a collection, a society of rooms that are in harmony with each other and connected at least visually and through the physical staircases also. So staircase, if you look at a staircase, it's nothing much really, but if you really look at it deeper, it can be designed also as a process. I would like to bring an example. I Am Ahmedabad by Louis Icahn. The stair is simply a stair, and it's the same for the child, the adult, and the old. It is thought of as a precise in its measure, particularly for the young boy who aspires to do the floors in no time flat. A young boy, if he sees a challenging thing, he may want to climb up and down. And an old man may be taking care of the young child when his parents or his mother and daddy are not at home. Now, in that case, in that condition, if an old man is taking care of the child, he may not be as strong as the kid to climb up and down. If you design the staircase in such a way that the stair landing is a place where the old man can sit, or you may also even have a bookcases in the staircase landing. The old man, he may climb up and enjoy and sit in the staircase landing and maybe read a few books. And when the child possibly asks why the old man is not running up and down, he may say, I am reading a book, or I am enjoying sitting here. He doesn't have to explain that I am old and I am not able to move. So that explanation may not have to be done by the old man to the young child. So it's also designing it a process of experience by the different users in that sense. Thank you for your time and listening.